Summit so far this year?
It's been really great. It's really been fun to kind of watch it evolve over time and to see the competition really evolve as well. I feel like I got a lot more time to work with my teams, and they both made it to the finals, so fingers crossed.
Nice, well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, I always, the Summit's always amazing. It's it's a unique event in that I can't think of really any other event that brings both such an interesting mix of participants and speakers together in such an intimate environment. And we're actually discussing this just downstairs, that, you look at the kind of collection of rock stars they've assembled for speakers are amazing, and the fact that you can hang out with them over the breaks and that they're so open to discuss things candidly is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was just saying the same thing. I was like, this is one of my favorite conferences because they actually will be really real with you about how it actually is. In many, many conferences, there's a lot of like, we have to look professional kind of, things going on. I have an agenda to hit, like I'm representing my company and I'm really trying to achieve something specific. Whereas here, they're really trying to contribute to the next generation, and that makes them much more open to really sharing their story authentically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like usually if you go to a big conference, you try to corner them in the bar afterwards when they're not being watched by their minders to hear the real story, and here they're pretty open about it. I think the agenda they have when they get here is quite different. They're really here to help, and it's awesome to see.
So as you said, a lot of the Gap Summits, it's all about creating this intergenerational debate and communication. So how do you think that that's important for developing future leaders, and how have leaders impacted on you as young people?
Well, I would say that it doesn't just go with, from the young people like being mentored by the old, but it also, I think, it's a cross-pollination, really, because what I've found, especially in my experience starting Spiral, is that it really is this combination of the young, kind of naive, but then they haven't been told no enough, and so they are willing to dream bigger, being combined with the super seasoned, experienced people that know where all of the pitfalls are. And I think that oftentimes, that part of the reason why you get as many amazing seasoned speakers is because they get as much as they give. They also get to really interact with kind of the next generation, and so I think that there's kind of this really interesting symbiotic relationship thing that happens, and I think that that's part of the reason why it's so successor.
Yeah, I think I get a fair amount out of it as a mentor with just the potential kind of collaborations. Like my inner or perhaps outer nerd really gets to go wild a little bit, just because it's a whole assortment of people. Honestly, it's a bit of a tangent, but if I had a giant pot of money, I would not be giving it to all the Nobel laureates and all the rock stars. I'd be finding the young investigators like in the far corners of the world saying, here's a bunch of money, go build these things. Because if you give the experts big piles of money, they tend to do what they did last year, And if you give a bunch of new people with all their crazy ideas who haven't been told no, they're going to go down a different path, and that's exciting to me. And some of the stuff they're working on even now, I'm like, I'm gonna send you some cells or some molecules. I want to see what it does in your model, and it's a cool opportunity.
So you both mentioned the Voices of Tomorrow competition, and you're both rockstar mentors as part of that. Could you tell us a little bit about the competition and your experience?
Yeah. Well, I've been mentoring this now officially, I guess, for the last 2. But I definitely was participating to a certain extent in the first one as well. And, it's a really interesting opportunity to see and to really help guide kind of the next generation, especially because I've been through this ringer before, right? Spiral was started because I won a business plan competition in 2009, right? And so I really am quite fond of these kinds of competitions because you just don't know what's going to come out of them. And I often encourage my mentees to pick something that they actually are really passionate about, because who knows, this could be the thing that you actually end up doing for the next, 10 years of your life. And so for me, it's been really, really fun to kind of participate and to contribute back in that way, because they could be making their very own next startup out of this, and I don't even know it yet. And so it's always fun to kind of see what happens afterward as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. Not all of them seem particularly, they're like, I just want to go into a big company. I'm doing an entrepreneurship thing. And so you have a mix. Not all of them seemed actually thrilled about it. And I was laughing about that a bit because It's like, you don't have to do this, right? And they, well, maybe, but they would get excited about it later, which I thought was interesting. And I would push them like, look, this is a golden opportunity for you. You could do something completely insane here, and there's like zero consequence for failure. Like I think, as the younger people coming in, they look around, they seem a little overwhelmed by all their amazing peers and the people coming in to speak. And it's like this is an opportunity for you to push the envelope farther than you might normally. And who knows, you might come up with a brilliant idea that consumes the next decade of your life, or it will get killed and you'll do the next one next year. And I think that's great. I mean, one of the skills I think that's actually really important as a young entrepreneur is knowing when you should kill projects. It's like maybe not something that people like to think about all the time because they all want to think their baby's gonna work, but the truth is most don't. And the ability to screen them in a confined space and push one line of thinking out to its logical conclusion is a really valuable one. And I think they tend to be pretty happy about it afterwards. So it's.
So for any of the leaders of tomorrow in the audience who are thinking about being entrepreneurs or even just being leaders and kicking off their own initiatives to make an impact in any way, any key words of advice for them?
I'm gonna go first.
Oh gosh. Well, that's tough. I think some of the best things that came out are really the value of persistence with this. And I mean, I often tell students that I'm like, look, starting anything is hard. Like starting a falafel stand is hard. Like the odds are you're going to fail at that too. But in bio and messing with things on the edge of science are particularly difficult. But there's a certain amount of it that is overcome just by not giving up at it, like continuing to climb the obstacles or hit the concrete walls instead of the glass ceilings that they brought up earlier today. Which I thought was an amusing term. But this idea, it's a delicate balance, I think, in terms of being hard-headed enough to have people say it's stupid and to like hit the obstacles and come over it, but be humble enough and receptive enough to feedback that you take the good feedback as you come. And I think that balance probably does more to shape the success of an entrepreneur than about any other single variable I can think of.
I would echo a lot of that. And then the other thing that I would add is, pick something you actually care about. Like, it's going to be a slog. It doesn't matter what you choose. As he said, a falafel stand is also hard. And, given that you're going to go through the ringer a lot, doesn't matter who you are or how good you are or, how great you are at raising money or any of that stuff, regardless, you're going to go through tough times. And that's just how that is. And if it's something that is something that you really care about, then you'll stick with it. It'll be worth it. And you'll deal with the stuff that's hard. If it's not something you really care about, at the first sign of it getting really tough, you'll be out. And so.
That's absolutely true. I think if you don't have the love for it, it's going to grind you up. And I mean, that's a great thing about what I've been doing is, every day I get up, I can't think of a job I would rather do. And for all the abuse, I love doing it, like a crackhead for entrepreneurship, just keep coming back. And if you don't have that level of excitement about it, you'll just never survive. It's way too punishing.
I mean, and it's just, some people are they say, oh, I want to do it because I really want to get rich, at some point. And it's like, if you look at the statistics, it's actually one of the worst ways to get rich. Statistically, you're just not going to make it, probably, right? But we're not in the business of, those odds. We're in the business of how do we really make the difference we're committed to making, period. And I think that makes it worth the pain and suffering that you'll go through, the struggle.
Awesome. I think that's it.
Sweet.